Hey, welcome everyone. It is GleeCon. I'm glad that you're joining me here as we dive in for another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Today's episode is called Galakrond, and let's find out what that's about. In the ages after the Pantheon left Azeroth, myriad life forms flourished across the surface of the world. The most savage and cunning were the proto-dragons, who dwelled in the frozen north of Kalimdor. The various proto-dragon species had a wide array of strengths and abilities. Some were gigantic winged beings of incredible fortitude, their spirits tied to the world itself. Others had unknowingly tapped into the latent elemental energies that permeated the newly ordered world. But there was one proto-dragon whose brutality and devastating power overshadowed the rest of his kind, and his name was Galakrond. And he was the largest proto-dragon who had ever soared across Azeroth's skies. So mighty was the enormous creature that the beating of his wings could flatten entire forests. Strength, however, was not his only weapon. He possessed a preternatural cunning that made him an exceptional hunter. In time, Galakrond came to dominate the most sought-after hunting grounds in northern Kalimdor. Compelled by an insatiable hunger, he devoured everything in sight. His body swelled to an even greater size, yet nothing could ever sate his cravings. So terrible was his hunger that Galakrond began feasting on other proto-dragons, even the corpses of the dead. Devouring fallen proto-dragons eventually warped Galakrond's mind and body with a necrotic affliction. Misshapen limbs and dozens of eyes sprouted across his gargantuan form. Death energies wafted off of Galakrond's jagged hide, reanimating dead matter. These necrotic powers were infused in Galakrond's victims, and they rose from the dead as mindless abominations. The ranks of Galakrond's wretched minions expanded. Soon he and his ruined followers terrorized the skies over Kalimdor. The other proto-dragons, fractured by long-standing rivalries, failed to unite against this new threat. Tyr, the mightiest of the Keepers, was the first of his kind to notice the danger posed by Galakrond. He warned his fellow Keepers of what he had seen, but he could not motivate them to act. Though the Keepers had once sworn to protect the world, the war with the old gods and the ordering of Azeroth had sapped their collective strength and willpower. They had become indifferent to the world at large, focused solely on maintaining their vaults and arcane machineries. But Tyr was not deterred by his siblings' apathy. His drive to seek justice and order in the world pushed him forward. Tyr knew that if Galakrond remained unchecked, he would devour all nature, spreading his affliction to the far corners of Azeroth. Thus the Keeper sought a means to destroy the giant proto-dragon and his minions. Tyr found his answer with 5 of the greatest and most intelligent proto-dragons in existence: Alexstrasza, Neltharion, Malygos, Ysera, and Nosdormu. Nearly all of these creatures hailed from different strains, and each of them displayed unique powers. Even the 2 sisters Alexstrasza and Ysera commanded distinct abilities. The tenacious and kind-hearted Alexstrasza could summon gouts of fire from her maw. The mighty Neltharion possessed incredible strength, and his piercing roar could shatter bone and rock alike. The cunning Malygos could breathe frost, encasing his foes in solid ice. The wise Nosdormu could assail his enemies with blinding storms of coarse sand. The elusive Ysera's breath could debilitate her enemies, sapping their willpower and throwing them into a deep trance. Tyr beseeched the 5 proto-dragons for aid in thwarting Galakrond. The creatures were initially suspicious of the strange being who had approached them, but they soon vowed to fight by his side. Despite their differences, the 5 proto-dragons showed a surprising willingness to work as one. Under Tyr's guidance, Alexstrasza and her companions warred with Galakrond and his fetid minions. Their battles raged over the snowy peaks and rocky spires of northern Kalimdor. Initially, Galakrond's jagged hide warded off the attacks of the 5 proto-dragons. Though disheartened by their enemies' resilience, Alexstrasza and her allies soon found his weaknesses. They assaulted Galakrond's many eyes and his soft, vulnerable gullet. By using their powers in harmony and trusting in one another, the 5 proto-dragons vanquished their gargantuan foe. Galakrond's lifeless husk plummeted to the ground, smashing into the frozen tundra of what would become known as the Dragonblight. The 5 proto-dragons had won, despite all odds, but they had only done so by working together. It was a lesson they would not soon forget. Alexstrasza and the others would carry on this ideal of unity and cooperation for ages to come. Tyr and the Silver Hand. Tyr fought alongside the proto-dragons, but Galakrond proved too powerful even for the Keeper of Justice. In one particular battle, the monstrous creature bit off Tyr's iron hand, suffusing him with necrotic energy. Although Tyr survived, his wound would never truly heal. Many years later, Tyr would replace his lost hand with one forged of pure silver. This silver hand would come to symbolize his belief that only through personal sacrifice could one achieve lasting justice. All right, as usual with this series, we have a lot of really cool things, and it just goes to show you how enormous and vast the intellectual property of Warcraft is, and just how much things still have yet to be established. So in this episode, we've really established the great dragons that we know through Warcraft lore. We've also shown the origins of the undead, because before this point we haven't really talked too much about them, and we've also built some more of the lore of Tyr up, because we know he's important. We know he's important to the origination of the paladins, and from the beginning to the end, he's a key figure in Warcraft history. So Galakrond, I didn't really remember. It sounded like familiar at first, but I didn't really remember. Now the bones of Galakrond are all over Dragonblight, and we also, more importantly, we have some very important key players that every single one of them is still active throughout Warcraft's history. Alexstrasza, huge, all the way up to as recently as Legion, I can say for sure. There's a part of that. I didn't realize Alexstrasza was a fire dragon, and I don't remember some of the other things that she's done, but I do recognize that name. It's a big one. Neltharion, also recognize that name. It's a very important. They say his power is piercing rock and bone with his mighty roaring powers. I think that's interesting as well. So his powerful roar, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes out. Malygos, I don't remember which one's in Kuldara up north. So one of those two is either Malygos or Alexstrasza. It becomes part of Kuldara. And maybe it's Malygos, because it does say Malygos can breathe frost. Nosdormu is the Caverns of Time dragon. It's a big part of war still, although this just says he's a sand. So that does put him in the desert of Tanaris, but it doesn't explain how he gets to have this control of time. And maybe that's something we'll read further, and how Chromie gets involved with things. In Ysera, that one for sure, Nature Dragon, killed in Legion, maybe, I want to say, and gets resurrected. Now Ysera's dead, but in Shadowlands, she plays a role as well in the most current expansion. Part of the Emerald Dream. Maybe, actually, Cataclysm might be where she does. Either way, there's a lot of these dragons. Every single one of them has key storylines in the world of Warcraft, if not even before that. So pretty cool that we see little Tyr in his silver hand, and the undead, these abominations, are already starting to come through necrotic energy, and I wonder if Galakrond is always tied to that. Cool episode, cool topic, and I look forward to doing the next one with you guys. Thank you for listening to me blah 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 at you for a while, and I hope having access to this lore is scratches a curiosity itch for anyone that doesn't have the books. All right, see you next time. Bye bye.